With only hundredths of a second separating the first few drivers, we should have a cracker of a race on our hands.
You know what? I'm just going to accept it. I'm honestly not going to have a care in the world up to this point. I'm just going to take the 9th position and just leave it there. Anyways, let's go to the race.
Here we go again then, with the second race of the day.
So, red lights are on. And it's go for race 2 here at Thruxton. And even though I did start from the back of the grid last time out, I did make sure I was in position to at least give myself some confidence by qualifying in the top 10. And at least I can say there is a separation this time from the drivers, meaning that I do now have a clear run here. And I'm already up into 7th position now as it stands, so something tells me I could be in a real good position here to potentially take home some valuable points here. And I think Menu is just up ahead of me, so something tells me this is going to be pretty interesting to see how this second race will go. Hopefully it won't be as terrible as the first race was, but I still managed to finish 2nd in that race regardless, so I may actually need to win here. And stepping on the brakes, giving Menu a little bit of contact there, and basically putting him in the bush. At least I can say that's effectively thrown a spanner into Renault's plans for the day, since I did effectively wipe out one of their drivers. And the two Audis are getting together, and we also have a Volvo up here in the top 4 as well, along with myself. I really am going to need this to be a race-winning run if I'm going to be ahead of Menu, because every point is crucial up to this point, especially considering he did beat me in the first race. So I'm really going to have to score as many points as I can if I'm going to be back on top. I have no doubt in saying Menu is already fighting his way through the field, and I just bumped off one of the Audis, and at the moment at least things aren't going as bad as I thought they were going to be, because I'm up into 3rd position and just stepping on the brakes there, trying to see if I could skate through the incident, and thankfully Rydell was able to save his race car before that became a collision. And I'm now up into 2nd position, so something tells me I do need this to be a race-winning run if I'm going to be considered a legit contender. For the race win, because I do need as many points as I can score if I'm going to be considered a contender. And even though I think that's probably Bieler who is leading this race in the Audi, it's a 4.2 second gap now as a result of me getting on the grass. I did figure I had to save my car if I was going to continue. We still have a long way to go in this race, plenty of opportunities for me to take the lead here, and probably didn't need to shift down to 3rd there, but somehow I still did. And 3.2 seconds is now the gap. The first race was all about survival, and it looks as though the second race is going to be about points. And I just spun out again. And oh god, this is going to be interesting. This is going to be very interesting. And it's now a 9.7 second gap to the leading Audi. I'm going to assume it's Frank Bieler who is in the leading Audi. Of course, I do know it would be nice to have a different team aside from... well, it would be nice to have a different team winning aside from Vauxhall and Renault up to this point in the season. It's going to get pretty chaotic before this is all said and done, but maybe this will be the day when I manage to finally break that Thruxton jinx I seem to have looming over my head. I'm also going to need a big enough distance to extend from the pack behind me, because I know both Renaults are in that pack. So 6.4 seconds is now the interval, so I am closing in on the leading Audi. And I did do some internet research to be sure of knowing that it wasn't Menu in the number 22. Menu drove the number 2, and it was Plato who drove the number 22, as far as I'm concerned. I did do the research to be sure of knowing that I was not being clinically insane when I say that. I do have internet research to prove it. I know that Menu drove the number 2 car, and it was Plato who drove the number 22. I'm pretty sure of this because the internet can prove my point. Anyways, that's now a new best lap time, and 2.7 seconds is now the interval to the leading Audi. I'm pretty much clear of the pack behind me now, so I'm really going to have to keep these mistakes to a minimum and hope that I can manage to break the Thruxton jinx. I practically had everything here except a win, so hopefully this time around I might actually score a win, if I'm lucky. Of course, I also have to hope that Menu does not finish any higher than 3rd, so then I should be back on top of the points by 2 over him, and maybe if it's possible I can actually have some consistent runs for these final 4 races. Which I'm pretty sure I will inevitably have to face. So, going around the outside of the Audi, making it so I can just clear him. I thankfully do. He does let me through to take the lead. And now I can just hope to hold on to the lead. Now, the start of the first race was messy, don't get me wrong, but I did, however, manage to still finish in 2nd, regardless of all the chaos that emerged in that first race. And thankfully, I also survived the chaos to eventually come home in 2nd. And now that I am here in race 2, I'm actually leading Thruxton for the first time. So maybe this will be the day when I finally manage to break that Thruxton jinx, which I've had from earlier on, because, well, this track is a nut house. or to put it simply, a madhouse. I can't take the blame. I don't feel the shame. It's a madhouse. Or so they claim. It's a madhouse. Am I insane? And yes, to anyone asking, I did just quote Anthrax. And by the way, I do recommend you listen to Madhouse by Anthrax because, well, that song is a real banger. And I do recommend you listen to that song if you like heavy rock or metal as much as I do. But I also like many other types of music as well. Especially film composition music, because, well, that too is quite worthy of endorsement. Still, I lead this race, and I'm already on to lap 9, so as long as Menu does stay behind me, as long as Menu does stay behind the Audi in this race, then that should put me back on top of the points, if my math is correct. Also, as a result of the Audis qualifying on the front row, thankfully they have been able to save me from having a more additional mountain to climb, because with Menu not scoring the pole position, he's not scoring any bonus points. And he's done that in neither of these races, but I'm pretty sure this more or less will be a race-winning run now. If I can keep my mistakes to a minimum, this should be a race-winning run. I'm pretty sure I know what to do here now. I just have to dodge the bullets whenever they see me and hope that whatever happens from here, I will manage to officially take the lead in the championship. Because these last 4 races after Thruxton in this championship, they are going to be asylum seekers, the way I see it. Because we're basically going to be fighting tooth and nail, very much like Audi and Lancia were doing in the World Rally Championship years and years ago in the WRC, when it was only just hitting its peak during the all-powerful Group B era. Although rallying didn't officially hit its peak in viewership until the 90s, because, well, obviously, you know, we had the likes of Colin McRae, Tommy Mäkinen, Juha Kankkunen, you know, guys like those who were basically competing for rally wins week in, week out. And that's a spin. Well, good thing to say I don't have any contenders behind me at the moment, so 10 laps are now complete here at Thruxton. I am sincerely hopeful in saying the second race will be just a little bit less chaotic than the first race was. Back markers are not giving way at the moment. I'm also really having to make sure that my car does not spin out in the process. So, I am now halfway through this race, but there's still plenty more that can happen. This race is far from over. I'm just hopeful in saying I can keep my mistakes to a bare minimum and hope that these AI will manage to give me enough fighting room, and that's not what I wanted. Just checking my mirror to be sure, yep, no one is behind me. That was not the way I wanted to take that final corner, but fortunately, however, the AI are not behind me. That pack I saw, basically it was a freight train of cars I saw between me and, I think it's Bintcliffe in the leading Audi. It was quite a pack between us, but I was able to still maintain the lead regardless, and I am going to assume this race is advantage to the player, so hopefully this will be where I do manage to score another crucial victory towards my championship campaign. Because I do have more wins on the season than Menu. It's just a matter of knowing if I can manage to beat him. That's all I really care about. Just beating Menu, that's my only objective. But somehow the game still had to jinx me by saying that it was Menu who wound up winning the race and not Plato. Also, like I said, I'm pretty sure with my numbers I was not mistaken. Because Menu drove the number 2 and Plato, I'm pretty sure he drove the number 22. But I'm just going to assume there had to be a glitch in the game somewhere, indicating that it just basically called me a psych. Because once I thought for sure Plato was winning the race, the game just basically said to me, psych, Menu wins the race. And that's basically what I think happened in the previous segment. But I'm ahead of the rest of the field now. Menu is nowhere to be seen in my mirrors at the moment. As long as I can keep my mistakes to a bare minimum, then hopefully everything is well. Then hopefully from here all should be well. Or so I would hope. As I am now onto lap number 14 here at Thruxton. And just trying to clear the lapped traffic. Really don't want to be the victim of chaos in the later stages of this race. And so, coming up to the end of lap 14 now, I am continuing to pull away from the rest of the field, regardless of the mistakes I've already made up to this point. And now I have just 6 laps to go here at Thruxton. The fastest circuit on the schedule, as I'm now closing in on my teammate Derek Warwick, who does manage to give me enough room to overlap him. I'm pretty sure he's not running in the points once again. It seems to be a trend that he's known for, sadly. And it would seem that whilst this is pretty much the shortest race on the calendar, because, well, it takes me less than half an hour to set 20 laps around this one circuit. It's definitely one of the hardest tracks to get through. And even though this race, I can happily say, is much easier than the first race was, I still haven't changed my opinion on Thruxton, because this track is very easy to lose control on, and I think for me to finish second in the first race, I was incredibly lucky. I pretty much had to be about as lucky as a dog digging to find a golden bone. And I basically mean a dog bone that's made of gold. That's probably how lucky I was to finish where I finished in that first race, especially with everything that went on afterwards. And setting a high 113 at the end of that lap as we now go on to lap 17. 4 laps to go here at Thruxton. Doesn't look as though anyone is going to be catching me. I just need to hold on to the lead now and hope that I can waltz away with the victory at my helm, and also to keep this car on track. It does look as though it will be another race where the player has the advantage, and hopefully this will also be where, if Menu doesn't finish second, I will manage to retain my championship points lead. But it will be official this time because there will be an advantage to me. Meaning for the next 2 races at Brands Hatch, I'm definitely going to need a good run. And almost hitting the pit wall there, and somehow in the process I still managed to set a new best lap time, in spite of me almost crashing straight into the pit wall. I thought for sure that was going to be disaster, but thankfully it wasn't. And now I can pretty much afford to relax from here. So, looks as though my laptop has managed to sort the recording out now. And gonna put it down again because it's distracting me just a little bit. Had to check my laptop to see how it was doing. Of course, you have to be right on the limits to set a decent lap time around Thruxton. It's the fastest track on the schedule. I'm also pretty sure that whilst I only have 2 laps to go now, I don't think I can afford to relax too much. So it would appear as though the second race is going to be redemption from the chaos that ensued in the first race. The second race has definitely been a lot more tranquil, and I am hopeful in saying that this time all is well. So, coming through now, the final sequence of corners here. since this course basically does remind me of the old Hockenheim ring, with how there are very few braking zones and you're basically just going foot to the floor for most of the lap. Basically reminds me of Hockenheim ring, and I do mean the old one. So I now head on to the final lap here at Thruxton, coming through to overlapping one of the Ford Mondeos once again, presumably putting him 2 laps down now, as I am through this first sequence of corners. And so here's to hoping the final lap will also manage to be my victory lap. I've gradually seemed to pull away from the AI. The second race has definitely been a hell of a lot easier than the first one was. So it is fair to say I'm definitely going to win this race by an absolute margin over whoever finishes second. It'll probably be Menu, but I'm deeply hopeful in saying it isn't. Anyways, let's see what the race results come up with. I win!
The new Vauxhall driver is really storming this season, and another victory moves the team further up in the Constructors' Championship. Let's have a look at the final race positions.
Alright. Thankfully, Menu did not finish any higher than 4th, so that's definitely going to put me back in the lead of the championship. Plato was 2nd ahead of Thompson 3rd, then Tarquini finishes 5th ahead of Rydell. David Leslie, who dropped out of the first race, was 7th. Bintcliffe finished in 8th in the end. Then we had Beale in 9th ahead of Kelvin Burt, who once again finishes 10th, and only a second ahead of Anthony Reid in the Nissan. So they must have had a pretty interesting tussle. Anyways, let's move on to the points.
Well, with today's races over, let's see the championship table. It's still anyone's championship, but the new Vauxhall driver is certainly looking good.
Yeah, 4-point lead heading into Brands Hatch. That's precisely what I needed. I really needed that win, if I was going to be the official leader. But anyways, I'm now the official leader of the championship, as I now save the game. So it's a 4-point advantage to me over Menu coming out of Thruxton. I have now managed to break the Thruxton jinx, and next time we will be heading over to Brands Hatch. Stay tuned for the final 4 races of the championship.